The Titanic was a huge and luxurious ship that set sail on its first journey from Southampton, England, to New York City, USA, on April 10, 1912. It was known as the Unsinkable ship because of its strong design and advanced safety features. However, tragedy struck just a few days into its voyage. The journey and the disaster. On the night of April 14, 1912, the Titanic was sailing across the Atlantic Ocean. The sea was calm, and the night was very cold. Suddenly, at 11:40 p.m., the ship hit a huge iceberg. The impact caused the ship's steel plates to break, and water started flooding into its lower compartments. At first, many passengers did not realize how serious the situation was. The ship's designers and crew hoped it would stay afloat, but within a few hours, it became clear that the Titanic was sinking. People panicked as the crew began lowering lifeboats, but there were not enough for everyone. By 2:20 a.m. on April 15, 1912, the Titanic completely broke apart and sank into the freezing waters of the Atlantic. Over 1,500 people died, mostly because of the cold water. Only around 700 survivors were rescued by a ship called the Carpathia hours later. Why did so many people die? 1. Not enough lifeboats. The ship only had 20 lifeboats, which could carry about 1,200 people, even though there were over 2,200 passengers and crew. 2. Women and children first rule. This meant many men had to stay behind and could not escape. 3. Cold water. The water was below freezing, 2 degrees Celsius or 28 degrees Fahrenheit, and most people who fell and died within minutes from hypothermia. 4. Late rescue of the nearest ship, the Carpathia, took hours to arrive. Aftermath and legacy. The sinking of the Titanic shocked the world. New safety rules were made, including having enough lifeboats for everyone. The wreck of the Titanic was discovered in 1985, at the bottom of the ocean. Even today, people remember the Titanic as one of the greatest maritime tragedies in history. The people on board. The Titanic carried 2,224 people, including passengers and crew. They were divided into 3 classes based on their tickets. 1. First class wealthy and famous passengers, such as John Jacob Astor, for one of the richest men in the world, Isidore and Ida Strauss, owners of Macy's department store, and the Unsinkable Molly Brown. They had luxurious rooms and fine dining. 2. Second class middle class passengers, including businessmen, teachers, and tourists. Their conditions were comfortable but not as fancy as first class. 3. Third class steerage, mostly immigrants hoping for a better life in America. They had small, simple rooms and limited access to certain areas of the ship. When the Titanic hit the iceberg, first-class passengers had a better chance of survival because they were closer to the deck and had more access to lifeboats. Many third-class passengers were trapped below deck and struggled to reach safety. Heroic acts and sacrifices. During the disaster, many people showed great bravery. Captain Edward Smith stayed on board and went down with the ship. Thomas Andrews, the ship's designer, helped people escape but refused to save himself. The musicians played music on deck to calm passengers until the very end. Isidore and Ida Strauss, owners of Macy's, chose to die together instead of separating. Molly Brown, a first-class passenger, helped row a lifeboat and encouraged others to return to save more people. The aftermath and changes in ship safety. The Titanic disaster led to major changes in ship safety. 1. More lifeboats. Ships were now required to have enough lifeboats for all passengers. 2. Ice Patrol. The International Ice Patrol (IOP) was created to monitor icebergs in the North Atlantic. 3. Better radio communication. Ships were required to have 24-hour radio operators to hear distress calls. 4. Lifeboat drills. Passengers and crew had to practice lifeboat drills before sailing. The Titanic wreck discovery. For decades, the Titanic lay undiscovered at the bottom of the ocean. In 1985, an explorer named Dr. Robert Ballard finally found the wreck about 12,500 feet, 3,800 meters underwater, near Newfoundland, Canada. Since then, many expeditions have explored the Titanic, bringing back photos, artifacts, and personal belongings of passengers. However, the wreck is slowly decaying due to rust-eating bacteria, and experts believe it may completely disappear in the future. Titanic in popular culture. The Titanic story has fascinated people for over a century. Books, documentaries, and films have kept the memory alive. The most famous is the 1997 movie Titanic, directed by James Cameron, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. The film mixed real history with a fictional love story and became one of the biggest movies of all time, and answered questions and Titanic mysteries. Even after more than a century, the Titanic still holds many mysteries and unanswered questions. 1. Could the Titanic have been saved? Some experts believe that if the ship had tried to hit the iceberg head-on, instead of turning, it might not have sunk so quickly. Others argue that if the crew had received iceberg warnings earlier and changed course, the disaster could have been avoided. 2. Why weren't the lifeboats filled? Some lifeboats left the ship half empty. Panic and confusion prevented many third-class passengers from reaching the boats. 3. Was there a fire before the iceberg? Some researchers believe a coal fire had been burning in the ship's boiler room before it even set sail. This may have weakened the ship's structure, making it more vulnerable to damage from the iceberg. 4. Did another ship ignore Titanic's distress signals? A nearby ship, SS Californian, was said to be within range but did not come to help. Some say its crew ignored the distress rockets, while others believe they did not understand what was happening. Survivors and their stories. The 700 survivors of the Titanic included women, children, and some lucky men who managed to board lifeboats. Many survivors shared their memories. Eva Hart, 7 years old, remembered her mother saying, "This ship is cursed," before the journey began. She and her mother survived, but her father did not. Violet Jessica, Titanic's stewardess who survived not just the Titanic sinking but also to other shipwrecks, Olympic and Britannic. Charles Joan, the drunk baker. He drank so much alcohol that it kept his body warm, and he survived hours in the freezing water before being rescued. Theories about the Titanic. Over the years, many conspiracy theories have emerged about the Titanic. 1. Was it really the Titanic? Some believe the Titanic was actually its sister ship, the RMS Olympic, which was secretly swapped as part of an insurance scam. 2. Did a curse doom the ship? Some say a cursed Egyptian mummy was on board, bringing bad luck. This is just a myth, but it adds to the mystery. 3. Was the Titanic sunk on purpose? Some theories suggest wealthy businessmen were assassinated because they opposed the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank. However, no real evidence supports this idea. The future of the Titanic wreck. The Titanic wreck is slowly disappearing due to rust-eating bacteria. Special bacteria are breaking down the metal, and the ship may completely vanish in the next few decades. Treasure hunters. Some companies have taken artifacts from the wreck, leading to debates about whether the site should be protected as a graveyard. Underwater expeditions. People continue to explore the Titanic, using modern technology like submarines and 3D mapping. Memorials and tributes to the Titanic. The sinking of the Titanic deeply affected the world, and over the years, many memorials and tributes have been built to honor the passengers and crew who lost their lives. 1. Memorials around the world. The Titanic Memorial in Belfast, Northern Ireland, built near the Harland and Wolff shipyard, where the Titanic was constructed. The Titanic Engineers Memorial in Southampton, England, honors the engineers who stayed behind to keep the ship's power running, helping others escape. The Titanic Memorial Lighthouse in New York City, USA, built in 1913 to remember those who died. The Titanic Graves in Halifax, Canada. Over 150 victims were recovered and buried here. Many tombstones are simply marked unknown. 2. Museums and artifacts. Several museums around the world preserve Titanic history. Titanic, Belfast, Northern Ireland. A huge museum built near where the ship was designed and launched. The Titanic Museum, USA, Branson, Missouri, and Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, features replicas of the ship's rooms and real artifacts. The Maritime Museum of the Atlantic, Canada, displays items recovered from the ocean, including life jackets and pieces of the ship. 3. Items recovered from the wreck. Many personal belongings and pieces of the Titanic have been found, such as a gold pocket watch stopped at the exact time the Titanic sank, a perfume case belonging to a first-class passenger, a letter written on Titanic's stationery, found in a survivor's pocket. Some believe these objects should remain underwater, as the Titanic's site is considered a mass grave, while others argue they help us learn more about history. The Titanic's influence on pop culture. The Titanic disaster has inspired books, plays, and movies, keeping its story alive. 1. Books about Titanic. A Night to Remember. 1955 by Walter Lord. A detailed account based on survivor stories. The Night Lives on 1986 by Walter Lord, a follow-up book exploring new discoveries. Titanic, The Long Night. 1998 by Diane Howe. Novel that tells the story through the eyes of young passengers. 2. Movies and TV shows. Titanic 1953, an old Hollywood film inspired by real events. A Night to Remember 1958, a black and white classic based on Walter Lord's book. Titanic 1997, by James Cameron, the most famous Titanic film, mixing history with a love story. It won 11 Academy Awards and introduced millions of people to the tragedy. Titanic, Blood and Steel. 2012, a TV series about how the Titanic was built. Titanic's lessons for the world. The Titanic disaster taught the world many important lessons. 1. No ship is truly unsinkable. Before the Titanic, people believed that technology could conquer nature. The disaster proved that even the greatest ships could be destroyed by a simple iceberg. 2. Safety comes first. Because of the Titanic, many new maritime safety laws were introduced. Ships must carry enough lifeboats for all passengers. Crews must conduct lifeboat drills before sailing. 24-hour radio operators are required on large ships. 3. Class differences in tragedy. The Titanic showed how social class could determine survival. First-class passengers had easier access to lifeboats. Third-class passengers faced barriers, and many did not survive. This led to discussions about fair treatment in emergencies. Could the Titanic happen again? Modern technology has made ships much safer, but disasters still happen. Examples include Costa Concordia, 2012, a luxury cruise ship that sank off the coast of Italy after hitting a rock. MV Seoul, 2014, a ferry in South Korea that sank, killing over 300 people, many of them students. These tragedies prove that even with modern ships, human mistakes and nature can still cause disasters. Titanic's lasting legacy. The Titanic was more than just a ship, it was a symbol of human ambition, hope, and tragedy. Over 100 years later, people still visit its memorials, watch movies about it, and study its history. Even as the Titanic wreck slowly disappears beneath the ocean, its story will never be forgotten. It remains a powerful reminder that we must always respect the power of nature and learn from history to prevent future tragedies. Conclusion. The Titanic's lasting impact. The Titanic is more than just a shipwreck. It's a powerful reminder of human ambition, mistakes, and resilience. The lessons learned from this tragedy changed maritime safety forever, and its story continues to fascinate and move people around the world. Even though the Titanic is gone, its legacy lives on in history, movies, and the hearts of those who remember the lives lost on that fateful night. The Titanic was a symbol of human ambition and tragedy. It was one of the most advanced ships of its time, Yet a simple iceberg led to its downfall. The disaster taught the world important lessons about safety, survival, and the power of nature. Even today, over 100 years later, the Titanic remains one of the most legendary and haunting stories in history.